Welcome to Monterey County Pops Pros Teach. I'm Carl Christensen, the music director and conductor of Monterey County Pops. Our orchestra of fully professional musicians presents free concerts of pops and patriotic music throughout Monterey County. During the school year, we visit local schools and conduct clinics and workshops for student musicians in the afternoon. And in the evening, we perform together in a free concert for their community. We are committed to mentoring young musicians, and since we have not been able to visit schools since March, we have created this series of instrumental clinics. They will be broadcast once a week on Comcast Channel 24, and they will also be posted on our website, montereycountypops.org, along with downloadable exercises, tips, and other print material. Bienvenido a Monterey County Pops Pros Teach. Soy Carl Christensen, director musical de Monterey County Pops. Nuestra orquesta de músicos totalmente profesionales presenta conciertos gratuitos de música ligera y patriótica en todo el condado de Monterey. Durante el año escolar visitamos escuelas y realizamos clínicas y talleres para estudiantes músicos por la tarde, y por la noche presentamos un concierto conjunto para su comunidad. Para nosotros, la educación musical de jóvenes músicos es muy importante, y como no hemos podido visitar escuelas desde marzo, hemos creado esta serie de clínicas instrumentales. Se transmitirán una vez a la semana en el canal 24 de Comcast y también se publicarán en nuestro sitio web montereycountypops.org junto con ejercicios, consejos y otro material impreso descargable. And now enjoy our cello episode presented by a member of our cello section, Deborah Tandoc. Y ahora disfruten nuestro episodio de cello presentado por miembro de nuestra sección de cellos, Deborah Tandoc.
Hi, my name is Deborah Tandoc. I have been performing for the last 45 years with various orchestras and chamber orchestras and teaching cello privately, 8 years of which includes public school strings teacher jobs. Growing up, I heard all kinds of music, all types of jazz, Dixieland, swing, blues, lots of folk songs, especially we had a French recording, very popular at the time. My parents had 3 classical recordings. This was my classical background here. We had Tubby the Tuba, Peter and the Wolf by Prokofiev, and the opera Carmen. I never thought to play an instrument until there was a demonstration when I was in 4th grade. It was done by a traveling strings teacher, and this was in San Rafael, Marin County. I passed the ear training test, and I was told I had good cello hands. My parents were in love with the bass, because being jazz fanatics, they liked it. But we all agreed it was too big of an instrument. And thanks to Jack Benny and his bad violin playing comedy routine, I was not going to play the violin. And a viola was just an overgrown violin. It was the same to me. This is just kid stuff going on. So after high school, my plan was to get a music teaching credential, which I did. Got my Bachelor of Music at San Francisco State after studying some years at Sacramento State as well. And then at Sacramento, I also played with the Sacramento Symphony. In addition, I spent a summer studying cello with Laszlo Varga at the Aspen International Music Festival, which included playing in the student orchestra, which was conducted at that time by Herbert Blumstead, who is a former conductor of the San Francisco Symphony. I mostly teach the Suzuki method and its supplementary materials, in addition to what we call traditional other pieces. There's many other pieces written for cello. The Suzuki method can't put everything in the books. Anyway, today my plan is to demonstrate to you how versatile the cello is as a purveyor of sounds. You've probably heard cello playing just normal things, but there's many, many different sounds a cello can make, and you'll maybe identify some of those in the future. Although many of these sounds are also possible on all the stringed instruments, such as the violin, viola, double bass, and guitar, the cello has a different tone color, different depth of tone color, as well as a broader range than those other instruments. The cello can sound in low as deep as a bass and high as a violin. This is the advantage of being a mid-range instrument. Here's an example of, let's say, the violin A and D string would be played about here. And the finger spacing is exactly the same as it is on the violin at this octave range. The violin upper strings, these are the two violin upper strings. So there we are for there. And then we have a lot more other places we can, higher we can go. And we can squeak just as well as a violin, if it's not played well. And then the bass. And with a bow. Can be played like there's our double bass line, and we play other things too. Because of this 4-octave plus range, which would be like C, there's a lot written for cello ensembles. You can find thousands of things on the internet, some really cool stuff, some very beautiful stuff. Lots of groups have done some, done some very creative things with cello ensemble. There's numerous duets written for cello, but there's also much stuff written for 3 and 4 and up to 12 cellos, a full orchestra of cellos, so to speak. I've written myself several arrangements for my cello groups when I had 20, 30 students. I won't go into that at this point, though. Okay, and the things that are on the internet are quite a variety of music styles, pops, classics, arrangements of other tunes, full orchestra pieces, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so now it's time to get to hearing more of the cello and how to make some of the traditional sounds and some cool, not so normal sounds, and the technique you need to make it right. We'll start with the left hand. I'll put my bow here for now. Other than all the 4-string notes, or the 4 open string notes, the left hand makes all the other sounds. You get your fingers seated into the strings, and you want to play on the tips, and if you can see the little marks on my fingers, that's where your fingers need to be for getting a good sound. And we train the elbow to stay out here. The elbow just doesn't sit down here. But if you play down here too long, it's hard. There's no reason to bring it up here. So we do a lot of exercises where to get the students to bring their arms up here. And we'll take the bow and make some sounds with that. So we'll sink the string in a little bit and we call this talking cellos, and the kids have a great time with it. And then we might put one finger on one string and one on another, and we can play a contemporary concerto. We do a little improvisation with this. So then I know which students are more into creativity, and some that need to do it the one way. If we just barely touch the string, we can do our harmonics. So we have our ghost sounds. So these are all the harmonics that would, on the A string, that would be in the pitches of A, C, sharp, E, G, those things. The same with all the other strings. All right, so if your fingers are into the string, you get a good sound. If it's not quite seated in there, you can see my fingers buzz a little bit. You get that sound. So I do a lot of plucking to start with so that everybody knows what it sounds like. And you want to have your finger, I'm tapping my knuckle, the bone of my finger is into the string, which transfers into the sound of the cello neck. And I'm tapping with the bone of this finger, and we get, this is a good test to see how your fingers are doing here. However, if you don't pluck, if you don't put your finger in really strong, you can still make a sound. So we're going like, okay, is your cello just bad, or are your fingers not into the string? So we come over and, oh, it's your fingers. Sometimes at the beginners we can push, if we keep the knuckles up like that, you can help seat the string in, seat the fingers in. See, oh, it has to go in just a little more. This is a no-no. This is a no-no for probably every instrument. So everybody needs to learn how to do this little curve thing to some extent. We do some of that to get to work with the finger hammering. When the kids get a little more advanced, they get sometimes a little lazy, so I use that piece to kind of check that with. And then glissando, you've heard that before, I just played that. Now I call 4 types of pizzicato. There's the picking, kind of a dry sound. Then we have the bass style, pulling the string. And then with the thumb, you can also do it. A little different sound. Sounds better the thumb. So there's that. And then that's the 3rd one. Yeah. And the 4th one is the Japanese koto. So I will take my fingernail that I keep, 1 fingernail for this. Better than a guitar pick. Sounds better than a guitar pick, actually. Or maybe I just don't have the right kind of pick. Okay, so I've been playing up and around the cello. We start off, of course, playing in just what we call first position. And then we move up the cello as we get more advanced and start playing higher notes. We have first finger in first position here. Either of these 2 notes, F sharp or C sharp, are second. This is 3rd. Shift up to the neck is 4th. This is either of these F sharp 5th. This is 6th. So this would be first finger here would be 7th. And then that's at the harmonic. And then we have thumb position. So since we're playing this note right here is the lowest note on the violin, and it's the G below the treble clef staff. So we play in treble clef. It was a while before they decided that to make a tenor clef for cellos, which is called C clef. So that denotes middle C. It's the same. It looks the same as the viola clef, alto clef. So when the cello is playing up to this point, they will use tenor clef rather than lots of ledger lines. So cello players, I think, are the only instrument that have to learn 3 clefs to play the instrument, if you get advanced enough to get to thumb position and play up there. It's not really hard to do. I just tell my students, cellist players just have to be smarter. So you're smart, right? Okay. All right. So now we're going to deal with the bow arm. And the bow arm's a tricky part. Everybody understands how to make notes with fingers, and they do it however they do it. The sound comes from the cello, from the bow. And anybody can make a sound on the cello. They can take the bow and they can go. Maybe push a little and sound better. I used to do demonstrations for the public school students, and I'd get, well, mostly I used the violin because we could hold it up there and stand up there and do it. It was more mobile. I'd have a student come up and they'd play this. I'd help them 2 times. Then I'd let go and they did it all by themselves. And everyone wanted to play the violin. They thought it was really cool. They thought, oh, that's easy. Sounds easy. Little do they know that you have to work on what you do with this bow. And so that's what students come up and they start to just make the sound like this. So this is what Dr. Suzuki decided to do, is to learn to play, have the students start with this. Very tiny. You need to play the bow in the middle when you play short notes and fast notes. You don't really play it down here. And I'll get into that later, why. Now the bow hold. This is a bow grip. It's a surgical tubing. Everything these days has some better grip to it, which helps. And there are some, there's a bow grip picture we can put up at this point too. I forgot to mention that. The thumb goes against the frog right here. So it's sort of like this. The thumb and the middle finger kind of form a pivot point. And you just slide your middle finger right up against the ferrule, the metal part, and touch the hair just a little bit so it has its own little corner to be. And then you can push or pull the bow. The other fingers, this one is, let me just use the yardstick here for a second. The joints of the first joints of the finger are where the bow rests. But so when you bend your fingers, then you have the first finger joint and then the middle ones, they all match in the same spot. Not the pinky though. Lots of people tend to lean way over on the bow too much, or they let it collapse here and just rest their bow here. This is a very lazy bow hold, and you're not able to bow straight. So that's what I'm going to get to now. The bow is balanced. It's not really gripped, so if you hold the bow straight up, like this, just put your pinky barely over, you shouldn't feel any weight. You tip the bow this way, and you feel the weight the string feels. Now, what gets cello players is that we start to go play, and we grab with the pinky, set the bow down, and we still are holding on tight. That's the bad thing for cello players. They just don't learn to let go. They think they have to hold. They think the bow's going to fall down. The bow doesn't fall down. It won't. If your bow is a little contact in here, so you can take your bow and do some X's. If you're not into the string, it slides around like that. So you put the little bit of bow weight in there, tilting this way, and see if the arm works. You want to bend the arm. You can't keep the bow in one arm and one locked in one place. It just doesn't work. Our goal is to have a straight bow at all times. Now that's where the art comes in. Now the science of everything, this is why I'm bringing this out, because it's really straight, not curved, and it doesn't look like an instrument. When we have to try and stay on one string, that's our goal. First we learn to stay on one string, then we have to play on two sometimes. So if we're holding our arm here and we're playing in the middle of the bow and we have to learn how to go out here, we can't just do this. See, the bow will move to a different spot and be in a danger zone. So we have to learn how to move our arm. And we have to learn how it changes with each string. So you have a different line, imaginary line on the C string that's easy to do. Arm is nice and relaxed. And then you have the G, it's up a little higher. And then you have the D, that's kind of, D and G are kind of right where we want to be. Then we have the A string that's like, whoa, wait a minute, I can't go out here. Let's see, this is about the length of a bow now. I have to change my bow hold. Oh, but I can't do that, I'm holding really tight. So then our bow goes that way. And we get kind of bad sounds, or we just run out of bow. Oh, I should be doing this. But my bow went, so I'm done early. Uh-oh, okay. So the best way to get to work on a straight bow is to look in a mirror. Your arm has to change as you play. You can't keep the arm in a fixed position. If you were to draw on the board or draw on a whiteboard or something, and you start here, your arm is bent a lot, and then you straighten it out and it goes out this way, and then we have to bring it in. So you move out this way to a certain point, and then you straighten out the arm. When you come back, you need to drop the shoulder, move the forearm in, and then bring the rest of the arm to follow. And this is the art of everything. The science is the straight line. This is a fixed line you have to take. It's imaginary. That's the problem. You have to imagine it. And so that's why you have to stand. And I will stand so you can see. I can move around here. It's easier than moving the chair. But if you see, pretend I'm looking in a mirror and you're looking at yourself and this is yourself, you take your bow and you pick a spot right in the center between the fingerboard and the bridge. And you work work on keeping the bow in the same spot. And you'll be sitting down while you do this. I can do one of them sitting down. The G is, and what happens if we're not keeping a straight bow, if we let the bow fall into our hand like this, we go, and it slides into the bridge, crash. So we're telling you to tell the students if they don't learn to steer their bow, they're going to have a little trouble being accepted as a driver when they get to be 16 years old. And sometimes they go, the bow's tilted upwards, and then it gets in the mud. And it's a funny thing about the mud, you get stuck in the mud and you just sort of stay there. You get near the bridge and nobody kind of ends up doing that. It just sounds so bad. This just doesn't sound bad, it's just quiet. All right, so let me move the chair here. So here's what the A string looks like, and because this is the hardest one to really picture. And this is what usually happens. The bow's this way. Because people don't drop their elbow and relax the first finger. They pull that first finger up here. Oh, my bow's going to slip. Well, not if they just keep if you just keep the contact in there. And I'm trying to hold my cello still here, but. So what's happening is that my bow hold is changing as I go out and in. So let it fall in my hand slightly, etc., etc. All right. So we talk about, when we play the bow, we talk about drawing the bow. So we're going to be pulling and pushing. And little things like I said before, you're playing in the middle of the bow for shorter notes. Everything starts in the middle. As you get longer, you kind of go inch out from either side of the middle. But you also have to learn how to do and you don't need to do a lot of bow for a certain length of note. So you can do a very slow bow and you can do a very slower bow, or you could do a quicker bow. You get just different sounds from that. Now we're going to talk about some bow techniques. So we've already just done some stop and starts and some legato, faster notes. So legato is an Italian term for smooth and flowing, which means you don't stop the bow as you change from one direction to the other. If you have different notes, sometimes you have 4 notes in a bow, or 2. That's be called a slur. Staccato is a sticky separated. It's one of the harder strokes to learn, so in the Suzuki method they do start with that. Basically you learn how to stop the bow. It's like your fingers need to be seated and have a little power and firmness, and so does the bow. If you don't learn staccato early on, you don't have a very good staccato. You just stay with the not stopping thing. That means you're not putting in enough thumb power. When you're using the bow, I'll show you that you don't really need all your fingers on the bow. You need them for control this way, but you don't need it for power. And I'm not doing anything special, I'm just doing this. That's just what we call thumb power. So besides the sticky and staccato, staccato only goes so fast. That's about as fast as you would do a staccato. When you want to go faster and it's got to be sticky, it gets a little lighter, so it becomes spiccato, which is springy. Now you have to hang onto your bow with your pinky. This is when you need your pinky on there. And spiccato can't be that slow, so it's a little hard and tiring to do it like at that speed. So that's when we might just do that staccato instead. That's a very fast spiccato called a sautier. Sort of sounds like a frying pan, right? We're sauteing something. And my favorite is, and you'd have to do this at the tip because that's where there's a lot of tightness in the bow. It doesn't work here unless you turn the bow around. It works, but it's a little heavy, so this is a much better thing. And so now I'm going to play my favorite. I always messed around with that. All right, and tremolo is a very fast. It's kind of a sound effect. And if you play it by the bridge, we call it sul ponticello, which means on the bridge. It's that's where you get your scary stuff happening. And the last one I'm going to say is called collegno with the wood. People with nice bows don't like to use this. Because it ruins their bow, on the finish on the bow. Can't remember the composer, but somebody used a lot of this for sounds of fire. Okay, so clean the rosin off. All right, now there's some other other sounds. There are some other sounds that we can do on the cello. These are kind of a little more out of the, this next piece. I'm going to play Old MacDonald. So Old MacDonald has animals on a farm. So this is great for young kids. And I tell my students who aren't so young, I say, well, if you go play at an assembly, you can play this for the kindergartners. They'll love it. So we'll start with Little Old MacDonald. I'll be playing what we call double stops, which means we're playing two notes at once. At this point, we make one of the animal sounds, but I'm going to do all five I have right now. First we have, see if our rooster's going to come wake us up. Oh my gosh, that was awful. I think I'll wake up. Then we have our mouse, and the kids love this one. Has to be done with, can't have a piece of metal here. You have to have something other than metal to make that sound. And then we have this animal. Our pig. And of course our cow. And then we have donkey. And playing on the other side of the bridge sounds different on every instrument. Every instrument. So when I've done this with a group, I have to have individuals play because depending on the cellos, if we can play it together and it just has a cacophony when we're playing over here, that's fine. And the mouse squeaks is fun too. Okay, so the cello can also be a percussion instrument. Kids don't tap too well. They don't know how to, you've seen people on the xylophone go clunk, clunk. They have to learn how to hit. But I've had to teach kids to do this. If they couldn't play quite the pieces we were doing, they would do this, or knuckle knocks. And the cello sounds, every cello sounds different. There's a different thicknesses in all the wood. So all different parts of the places on the cello sound different. And tapping my fingers is easier than knuckle knocks because this is kind of awkward. But I like, this hand is better than this one. There's probably a lot of stuff on the internet with cello percussion. Okay, so now I'm going to play a piece from one of the etude books that we're going to show an example of the supplemental Suzuki books. This is Rick Mooney's Position Book 2 when we're playing up here. and it's one of the better pieces. It uses all the different upper positions. And so I'm going to demonstrate some of the things that we're doing on this. Now we're going to be a guitar, we're going to be drums with pitch, so we're going to have some, and then we're going to have some ricochet, the dribbles, but an up-bow dribble instead of, we're going to have, and then just a plain ricochet. So here we go. So I played a little of the melody line and a little of the bass line, and I kind of cooperated it together, is what that was. I did forget to mention earlier that some good bowing tricks, along with the dropping the bow, to relax the bow arm, to let go of your pinky, are some dribbles. We have just plain bounces here. And the wrist is doing the work. It's just letting go. And now we're going to do something. We're going to be Stephen Curry and dribble the basketball. And we're going to use the forearm. This is the forearm. Now, fun thing I like to do with this is as we're doing this, we take the pinky off, then we take the next finger off, and now we're taking, now I have to go faster. Take all the other fingers off. And now we really get the jelly going. The elbow's moving quite a bit. And you have to find the right spot of your bow for how that works. So we can play pieces just for fun. Or things like that with all the different bowing. But the main thing is to do some things where you let go of your pinky and give some relaxation on that, so it's not grabbing all the time. So there's a lot of music been written for a lot of these different sounds on the string instruments. So at the time we have left, I have really short excerpts for you to listen to. The first one is from Prokofiev's Fifth Symphony. It's a cello, from the cello section, written in 4 parts. It's the opening of the 4th movement of Prokofiev's Fifth Symphony. The second is Debussy's La Mer, and the cello section is also divided into 4 parts. And you can really hear the ocean waves crashing into the shore. He wrote this when he was at the ocean one summer. And the third is an arrangement for 5 cellos of a waltz for a variety orchestra by Shostakovich. It's been popularized to a great extent on the internet, and it has a lot of pizzicato going on and some of that sort of thing. It's really something, if you can look for it on the internet, it's more fun to watch. Okay, again, my name is Debbie Tandoc. This is the cello, and I hope you enjoy playing, or if you do now, play again. So happy celloing. Thank you for listening.